Hi, my name is Ron Frey, and I'm president of Frey Resource Group. I am here to do a blog for this week, the week of July 19th, 20th, whatever we're at here. And I want to talk about what is the purpose of a board. Now, I realize that some that will be listening have boards, others may not. And you may be a young organization or a more established one that has a board. And regardless of whether you're a young organization or a more established one, the role of a board is pretty critical to making your organization come alive. And so what I'd like to do is share 7 purposes of a board. Now, I realize that there's many different opinions about what I'm about to share. I hope that you'll just listen and take into consideration what I've learned over the years by observing and actually serving on several boards over the years, but observing many, many more, and understanding that there are some dynamics that if boards would just grab a hold of a few key concepts about their role and what they should be doing, would really help. I've talked with so many ministry leaders over the years that have expressed frustration about their boards. They have expectations of what their boards should be doing. And the boards don't do what the executive director would like them to do. By the same token, sometimes boards express frustration with their chief executive officers, the people that they've hired to run the organization, and they have frustration over how it's being led and whether or not they're accomplishing what they should. And this can create tension in an organization, and it has a ripple effect throughout the organization when the board and the executive director are not in alignment. So in this video blog, I just want to take a couple of minutes to share with you some thoughts about what is the purpose of a board and how do boards and executive directors get along. So I would like to propose that the first I've got 7 points. The first is this: the purpose of a board is to provide clarity about the purpose of the organization through its mission statement and its mission. The board's job is to clarify what do we do and why do we do it, and to stay focused on that mission as opposed to getting dragged off into other things that are not central to the mission of the organization. Sometimes missions are defined quite broadly, and there's a lot of room. Others are more narrow in terms of what the scope of work is to be. And as we have gone through the COVID-19 crisis here, this is July of 2020 that I'm giving this, there's organizations that have found that it's very difficult to do what they originally felt that they were called to do, or at least how they would go about operating their ministries because of social distancing and those kinds of things, and even businesses being shut down. So providing clarity of why we're here is one of the first purposes of a board. The second is also related to vision, and that is to clarify the direction of the organization. People want to know, where are we headed? Where are we going as an organization? The market out there is changing. There's opportunities. There's also risks and threats. And so we need to know, where are we going? How are we going to get there? So the board needs to work on defining the direction of an organization. A third purpose of a board is to create the organizational culture by modeling its core values. A board really needs to understand what is most important to the organization. What do we value? What do we care about? Now, this is going to be different for many organizations, but oftentimes we'll find some common elements of core values in terms of how we treat each other with respect and equity and fairness and justice. We may decide that we value certain kinds of programs and how those are delivered. Those are the core values, but those define the priorities of the organization, and they also determine how resources get used. And so the board needs to be very attuned to the core values and help set the core values and then model them in the way that the board actually functions. A fourth purpose of the board is, I would say, to achieve the mission through governance. Not only does it clarify the mission, it achieves the mission and does that through governance. Now, people have said to me over the years that the purpose of the board is to govern. And I generally would agree that that is true, but I wouldn't put it that way. I would just say the goal of the board, or the purpose of the board, is to actually achieve the mission of the organization. The way in which it does that is through governance. It uses governance as a tool to help the organization move forward and towards its vision and its mission. And that in doing so, the board must ask many different questions about how we operate, what are our programs and services, how do we deliver on our promise that we are achieving the mission, how do we set the organization up for success, and how is it going to be led? What kind of traits in a leader will take us to where we want to go? So governance deals with policies and procedures and things like that that oftentimes need to be clarified by a board. And sometimes this takes quite a bit of discussion. But nevertheless, it happens at the board level because a group of people in their wisdom, hopefully their wisdom, will be able to come up with a solid policy, a solid answer about how to govern the organization. A fifth characteristic or purpose of the board is to earn the public's trust. Now, it does that through financial accountability. Financial accountability is one of the tools that help build public trust. And so attention to financial accountability is certainly one of the governance functions of a board. But I don't see financial accountability as just being an end goal, an end in and of itself. Obviously, an organization needs to operate within its current guidelines legally. It's accountable not only to the government and to its donors, but to God. And it's also accountable to itself, the board members accountable to one another for the integrity in which they operate. But the end game, what we're seeking, well, the purpose of all this is actually to win the trust of the public that's going to support you, to support your organization, and to win their confidence in your financial integrity and stewardship. The sixth purpose of a board is to achieve a positive future through planning. Now, we talked a little bit about clarifying what the direction of your organization is, but you've got to have a plan to get there. One of the people that I really respect is the president of a grant-making foundation. And as I was talking with him about what are the major areas where a board can make the biggest difference, he said, we find organizations that the boards are engaged at a certain level, but they just don't know how to do strategic planning. They don't understand how to create a plan, execute on a plan, see that a plan is actually fulfilled, that it's implemented. And so one of the things that a board needs to do is to look toward the future and plan for a positive future. A board should be constantly looking how it's going to achieve its goals and do that through strategy. Number 7 is this. It's probably the one you've all been waiting for, Ministry Fundraising Network here. And that is the board assures the short-term and the future financial sustainability of the organization through philanthropy. The board's job is to create a culture of philanthropy and giving. Now, sometimes board members individually are very generous, And they are able to do that. There are other board members I've seen over the years that don't necessarily have a lot of money, but they've got a generous spirit, a generous heart. And although their giving may not be in large numbers, their generosity in time and expertise and talent more than makes up for what they don't give in terms of actual money. But then I've also found board members that are not giving at all. They seem to not do much either. And so this can be a problem if you've got the wrong person on your board that's not demonstrating how to build a culture of generosity and philanthropy. So one of the purposes of a board in becoming generous is also to encourage the generosity of others. And the best way to do that is, first of all, by giving yourself and making sure that every board member is contributing. So there's 7 purposes of a board for your consideration. Let me review them. First, to provide clarity of the purpose through its mission. Secondly, to provide clarity of direction through the vision. Thirdly, to create the organizational culture by modeling its core values. Fourth, to achieve the mission through effective governance. 5, to earn the public's trust and financial support through accountability. 6, to achieve a positive future through planning. And 7, to assure the short and long-term financial sustainability of the organization by building a culture of philanthropy. I hope that this is helpful to you this week as you think about working with your board.